The corporate tower of Harrison Steel Industries rose 43 stories above downtown Atlanta, a monument of glass and steel that reflected the Georgia sun like a mirror. Inside, 3,000 employees worked in climate-controlled comfort. Their lives ordered and predictable, their paychecks reliable. On the 20th floor, in a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows, Harrison Steel adjusted his navy Italian suit and smiled at his reflection. At 42, he had the kind of sharp-featured handsomeness that came from personal trainers, expensive haircuts, and the absolute certainty that the world existed to serve him. His father had built steel industries from nothing, but Harrison had inherited it like a throne. And he ruled his kingdom with an iron fist wrapped in expensive leather gloves. 20 floors below, Diane Porter pushed her cleaning cart through the marble lobby, her movements efficient and unremarkable. At 38, she had perfected the art of invisibility. Her dark skin gleamed with a light sheen of perspiration from the physical work. Her hair pulled back in a practical style beneath a bright yellow bandana that matched her work shirt. Most people looked through her rather than at her, which was exactly what Diane wanted. Invisible meant safe. Invisible meant no questions about her past. Invisible meant she could earn a living without anyone discovering who she really used to be. Staff Sergeant Diane Porter, United States Army Special Forces. 3 combat deployments, 20 years of service. Expert in hand-to-hand combat, tactical operations, and keeping herself and others alive in situations that would break most people. But that was before the bureaucratic nightmare that had ended her career. Before the false accusations that had destroyed her reputation. Before she had been forced to choose between fighting a system designed to crush her or simply disappearing into a life where her military record did not matter because no one bothered to look. She had chosen to disappear, and for 2 years, it had worked. Until the morning Harrison Steel decided to acknowledge her existence. It started small. A complaint about the executive bathroom not being clean enough, delivered in front of other employees with deliberate contempt. A demand that she remop a floor she had just finished because he claimed to see a spot. Small humiliations designed to remind her of her place in his world. Diane absorbed each one without reaction, her face carefully neutral, her responses professionally bland. "Yes, sir. Right away, sir. I will take care of that, sir." She had dealt with far worse than verbal abuse in her military career. She could handle a spoiled millionaire with a power complex, but Harrison was not satisfied with her compliance. He wanted submission. He wanted to see her break. The confrontation came on a Thursday evening after most employees had left for the day. Diane was cleaning the executive floor when Harrison emerged from his office, his tie loosened, his eyes sharp with calculation. "Miss Porter," he said, his voice carrying false politeness. "A word, please." Diane straightened, meeting his gaze with practiced calm. "Yes, sir. I have been reviewing your work, and I am afraid it is not meeting our standards." Harrison stepped closer, invading her personal space in a way that was clearly intentional. "The quality has been slipping. I think perhaps you are not suited for this position." "I apologize if my work has been unsatisfactory," Diane replied, her voice steady. "Can you specify which areas need improvement?" "All of them," Harrison said flatly. "You are sloppy, careless, and frankly, I question whether you have the capacity to understand what excellence means." The words were designed to wound, to diminish. Diane recognized the tactic immediately. This was not about her work, which she knew was impeccable. This was about power, about Harrison needing to assert dominance over someone he perceived as beneath him. "I will do better," Diane said quietly. "Will you?" Harrison smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Or will you just continue being mediocre and hoping no one notices?" "Tell me, Miss Porter, what exactly makes you think you deserve to work here?" I do my job well, Diane replied. I am reliable, thorough, and professional. You are a janitor, Harrison said, his voice dripping with contempt. You clean up other people's messes because you are not capable of anything better. You are invisible because you are worthless, and the only reason you still have this job is because no one has bothered to fire you yet. The insults rolled off Diane like water. She had been called worse by drill sergeants, by enemy combatants, by officers who resented a woman in special forces. Harrison Steele was nothing compared to the challenges she had already survived. But what he said next changed everything. You know what I think, Harrison continued, stepping even closer. I think you are hiding something. People do not take jobs this far below their capabilities unless they are running from something. So, what are you running from, Miss Porter? What did you do that you are so desperate to stay invisible? Diane felt her carefully maintained composure crack slightly. How did he know? What had he discovered? I do not know what you mean, she said, but her voice had lost some of its steadiness. Do not play stupid with me, Harrison snapped. I have resources. I can find out everything about you with one phone call. Every job you have ever had. Every place you have lived. Every secret you are trying to keep buried. He leaned in until his face was inches from hers. So here is what is going to happen. You are going to quit. Tonight. And you are going to disappear back to whatever hole you crawled out of. Because if you do not, I will make it my personal mission to destroy whatever pathetic life you have managed to scrape together. The threat hung in the air between them. Diane felt her training kick in automatically, her body assessing the situation. One exit, blocked by Harrison. No weapons within immediate reach. But she had been in worse tactical positions. She could handle this, or Harrison continued. Perhaps we can come to an arrangement. I am sure a woman in your position would be willing to be accommodating in exchange for keeping her job. The implication was crystal clear, and that was the moment Diane stopped thinking of Harrison Steele as just another bully. That was the moment he became a threat that needed to be neutralized. No, Diane said quietly. Harrison's expression darkened. Excuse me, I said no. Diane straightened to her full height, her voice gaining strength. I will not quit. I will not be intimidated. And I will certainly not be accommodating. This conversation is over. She moved to step around him, but Harrison grabbed her arm, his fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. You do not walk away from me, he hissed. Let go of me, Diane said, her voice dropping to something cold and dangerous. Last warning, Harrison laughed, but it was an ugly sound. Or what? You will report me. Who do you think they will believe? The CEO who signs their paychecks or the janitor who no one would even notice if she disappeared? He was right about one thing. In a straight fight of credibility, he would win. He had money, power, connections. She had a mop and a paycheck she could not afford to lose. But Harrison had made two critical mistakes. First, he had assumed that someone in a service position must be weak. And second, he had put his hands on a woman who had spent 20 years learning how to neutralize threats. Diane moved. Her left hand came up and broke his grip with a precise strike to his wrist. Her right hand shot out and caught him by the throat. Not hard enough to crush, but firm enough to make her point absolutely clear. In less than 2 seconds, she had reversed their positions. Harrison was backed against the wall. Diane's hand on his throat. Her eyes locked on his with absolute focus. You were saying something about who people would believe, Diane said softly. Let me explain something to you, Mr. Steele. For 20 years, I served my country in places you could not survive for 20 minutes. I have dealt with enemies far more dangerous than a spoiled millionaire with daddy issues. So when I tell you to let go of me, you let go. When I tell you to back off, you back off. And when I tell you that this conversation is over, it is over. Do we understand each other?" Harrison stared at her, shock and fear replacing his earlier arrogance. He managed a jerky nod. Diane released him and stepped back, her breathing steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. "I will be back tomorrow to finish my shift, and you will not speak to me again unless it is to discuss my actual work. If you have a problem with that, feel free to fire me. But be aware that if you do, I will have questions about why a CEO felt the need to threaten and assault a janitor. Questions that HR might find very interesting." She turned and walked away, her heart pounding but her step steady. Behind her, Harrison remained frozen against the wall, his hand on his throat, his carefully constructed power shattered by a woman who was supposed to be beneath his notice. Diane knew she had just made an enemy, but she also knew she had drawn a line that Harrison would not dare cross again. At least, not directly. She was wrong. Over the next 2 weeks, Harrison's retaliation was subtle but systematic. Her work schedule was changed without notice. Her supply requests were denied. Small, personal items began disappearing from her locker. Nothing she could prove, nothing she could prove, nothing she could report without sounding paranoid. But Diane recognized warfare when she saw it. This was psychological operations, designed to wear her down, make her quit on her own. She had seen the same tactics used in combat zones. She responded the way she had been trained: document everything, build a case, prepare for escalation. Because men like Harrison did not stop at psychological warfare. Eventually, they moved to direct action. The attack came on a Tuesday night. 3 weeks after their confrontation, Diane was finishing her shift, pushing her cart toward the parking garage, when she noticed the security cameras had been turned away from her usual route. Red flag number 1. The parking garage was dimly lit, the usual hum of ventilation systems the only sound. Red flag number 2. The garage was never this quiet. Diane slowed her pace, her training kicking in fully. Assess the environment. Identify threats. Plan an escape routes. She saw them before they saw her. 3 men, positioned near the stairwell, trying to look casual but failing. Their body language was wrong. Tense, anticipatory, waiting for something. Waiting for her. Diane turned her cart around smoothly, heading back toward the elevator. But before she could reach it, 2 more men emerged from between parked cars, cutting off her escape. 5 against 1. Professional muscle, judging by their movements. And somewhere, probably watching from a safe distance, Harrison Steele was orchestrating this entire operation. Diane felt a cold calm settle over her. This was not the first ambush she had survived. It would not be the last. The men moved in, surrounding her in a loose circle. The largest one, clearly the leader, stepped forward. "Miss Porter," he said, his voice carrying false courtesy. "Mr. Steele wants to have a conversation with you. We are just here to make sure you come along peacefully." "I do not think so," Diane replied, her hands loose at her sides, her weight balanced. "Tell Mr. Steele if he wants to talk to me, he can schedule a meeting through HR like a professional." The leader smiled, but it was not friendly. "This is not a request, and I'm not coming with you." The leader sighed, as if disappointed. "Then I guess we do this the hard way." He reached for her arm, just as Harrison had. It was a mistake he would regret. Diane moved with the precision of 20 years of combat training. She caught his wrist, twisted, and used his own momentum to throw him into one of his partners. Both men went down hard, their heads cracking against the concrete. 2 down, 3 to go. The remaining 3 rushed her simultaneously, a coordinated attack that would have overwhelmed most people. But Diane was not most people. She was a special forces operator who had survived 3 combat deployments by being faster, smarter, and more ruthless than her opponents. She dropped low, sweeping the legs out from under the nearest attacker. As he fell, she grabbed his jacket and used him as a shield against the second man's punch. The impact sent both men tumbling. The 5th man hung back, reassessing. He was smarter than his partners, Diane noted. He pulled out a knife, clearly deciding that close-quarters combat with this woman was not a good idea. "You do not want to do that," Diane said calmly. The man with the knife laughed. "Lady, I do not know what kind of self-defense classes you took, but this is real life. Put your hands up and come with us, or this gets messy." Diane analyzed her options in milliseconds. Man with knife, approximately 15 feet away. 2 men recovering behind her. 2 men still down but not out. Limited time before building security noticed something was wrong. She made her decision. Diane grabbed her cleaning cart and shoved it hard at the man with the knife. He tried to dodge, but the cart was heavier than he expected. It caught him in the legs, throwing off his balance. In the second he was distracted, Diane closed the distance between them. She caught his knife hand at the wrist, twisted until she heard bones crack, and relieved him of the weapon in one smooth motion. Then she swept his legs and put him down hard, the knife now in her control. The 2 men who had recovered saw her standing over their partner with his own knife, and immediately reconsidered their life choices. They raised their hands, backing away slowly. "We are done here," one of them said. "Smart choice," Diane replied. "Now, all 5 of you are going to stay right where you are while I call the police. And you are going to tell them exactly who hired you and why." From the shadows near the executive entrance, Harrison Steele watched his carefully planned assault fall apart in less than 3 minutes. He had paid these men good money to intimidate Diane, rough her up enough to make her quit. Instead, they were lying on the concrete like amateurs, while a janitor held a knife and looked more dangerous than anyone he had ever seen. Harrison felt real fear for the first time in his entitled life. This woman was not what she appeared to be. She was something far more dangerous. Something he should never have provoked. He pulled out his phone to make a call, to activate his backup plan, to contain this situation before it destroyed him. But before he could dial, he heard a voice behind him. "Mr. Steele, I think we need to have a conversation about workplace violence." Harrison turned to find Patricia Kim, the HR director, standing with her own phone out, clearly recording everything. Behind her stood Jake Morrison, the head of security, and 2 actual police officers. "How long have you been here?" Harrison managed to ask. "Long enough," Patricia replied coldly. "Long enough to see you orchestrate an assault on an employee. Long enough to have video evidence of everything that just happened. Long enough to end your career. You cannot prove anything," Harrison said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Actually, I can." Patricia held up her phone. "You see, when Diane came to me 2 weeks ago with concerns about harassment, I took them seriously. We set up additional security cameras. We monitored your communications. We documented every petty act of retaliation." She smiled coldly. "And tonight, we caught you red-handed hiring thugs to assault an employee in our parking garage." "This is entrapment," Harrison protested. "No, this is justice." Patricia nodded to the police officers. "Officers, I believe you have enough to make an arrest." As the police moved forward, reading Harrison his rights, he looked past them to where Diane stood in the parking garage, still holding the knife, still surrounded by the men she had defeated. Their eyes met across the distance. "Who are you?" Harrison called out, his voice breaking. Diane smiled, but there was no humor in it. I am someone you should never have underestimated, Mr. Steele. I am someone who spent 20 years learning how to neutralize threats like you. I am someone who does not quit, does not back down, and does not let bullies win. She handed the knife to Jake Morrison and picked up her cleaning cart. And right now, I am someone who has a shift to finish. As Diane walked away, pushing her cart with the same steady pace she always had, Harrison Steele was led away in handcuffs. His empire, built on intimidation and inherited wealth, was crumbling, all because he had made the fatal mistake of assuming that someone in a service position must be weak. He had learned, far too late, that strength has nothing to do with your job title, and that the most dangerous opponents are the ones who have survived real battles, not just boardroom politics. 6 months later, Diane Porter stood in a different office. This one was smaller, warmer, with photos on the desk and windows that looked out over a community center in a neighborhood that could use more heroes. After Harrison's arrest, the truth about Diane's military service had come out. The false accusations that had ended her career were investigated and overturned. Her record was cleared, her reputation restored. She could have gone back to the military, returned to special forces, reclaimed her old life. Instead, she had chosen something different. The community center offered self-defense classes to women who had experienced violence or harassment. Diane taught them not just techniques, but confidence, the belief that they could fight back, that they did not have to accept abuse, that they were stronger than anyone gave them credit for. She also worked with veterans transitioning to civilian life, helping them find purpose outside the military structure. She understood that struggle intimately. "Miss Porter," a voice called from the doorway. Diane looked up to find Patricia Kim standing there with a familiar smile. "Mind if I come in?" "Please." Diane gestured to the chair across from her desk. "What brings you here?" "I wanted to give you an update." Patricia settled into the chair. Harrison Steele was sentenced to 5 years for assault, attempted bribery, and witness intimidation. The other charges are still pending, but his lawyers are pushing for a plea deal. "Good," Diane said simply. "The company has also settled with you for the harassment and retaliation. The check should arrive next week." Patricia paused. "It is a substantial amount, enough to fund this center for years." "I appreciate that," Diane replied. "But honestly, the money was never the point. The point was making sure he could not do this to anyone else." "You succeeded," Patricia assured her. "The culture at Steele Industries is changing. New leadership, new policies, real accountability." "What you did, standing up to him, even when it put you at risk, that inspired others to come forward with their own stories. You started something important." "I just wanted to keep my job," Diane said. "I just wanted to be left alone to work." "But you were not left alone. And instead of running, instead of accepting the abuse, you fought back." Patricia leaned forward. "Do you know how rare that is? How many people in your position would have just quit? Just walked away rather than risk confrontation with someone that powerful?" 20 years in the military taught me not to quit," Diane replied. "Even when quitting would be easier, even when fighting back seems impossible. You stand your ground. You protect your unit. You complete the mission. And what is your mission now?" Diane looked around her office, at the photos of women who had graduated from her self-defense program, at the veterans who had found new purpose through her guidance. "This," she said simply, "helping people find their own strength, teaching them that they do not have to accept being treated as less than they are. Showing them that the most powerful weapon they have is the belief that they deserve better." She met Patricia's eyes. "Harrison Steele thought he could break me because I was a janitor, because I was black, because I was a woman, because I was supposed to be invisible and powerless. But he forgot that strength is not about your position or your wealth or your title. It is about your character, your resilience, your refusal to let others define your worth. Patricia nodded slowly. You know, when you first came to work at Steel Industries, I barely noticed you. You were just another member of the cleaning crew. But now, when I think about the most powerful person I know, I think of you. Not Harrison with his millions. Not the executives with their corner offices. You. The woman who pushed a cleaning cart and changed everything. Diane smiled. I am still that woman, Patricia. I still clean when things need cleaning. Still help when help is needed. The difference is that now I do not hide who I am. I do not make myself invisible to stay safe. I stand in my full truth, and I teach others to do the same. As Patricia left, Diane turned back to her desk. On it sat a framed photo of her in full military dress uniform, medals gleaming, her expression proud and strong. Next to it was a photo of her standing with a group of women from her self-defense class, all of them smiling with the same kind of hard-won confidence. She had been invisible for 2 years, hiding from her past, afraid of what might happen if people discovered who she really was. But Harrison Steele had done her an unexpected favor by forcing her to fight back, by pushing her until she had to reveal her true strength. He had freed her from the prison of invisibility. Now she stood in full light, helping others find their own power. And that, Diane thought, was worth every moment of the struggle. Because sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is not protection from the battle, but the training to win it themselves. And Diane Porter, once invisible janitor, now community leader and warrior for justice, had plenty of training to share.